Well, let's speak to a social commentator and futurist, Mal Fletcher. Mal, this is, whatever your personal opinions, this is a confusing case, isn't it?
Yeah, good morning, David. It absolutely is. I think there's three important issues here for all of us to consider. They're moral issues in a sense. First of all, how many of this young woman's decisions during her time in Syria were made with an adult awareness and perspective? Number two, what role did she play in the conflict? Number three, you've touched on this very well, what due process is available to people who are effectively stateless? To take the first question, as I understand it, Miss Begum left at the age of 15. She might well have known then she was headed into a war zone. We can't be sure, though, at that time that she fully understood the implications of her decision at that time. She subsequently had 3 children, 2 of whom died, so her circumstances and environment probably encouraged her to grow up pretty quickly. So then we have to ask, during her time as an ISIS bride, did she develop that adult perspective, and was she willing and free to leave at any time? Without having access to the kind of information the government or the Court of Appeal might see, it's very difficult for you and I to make that call.
But all the evidence that we've seen so far from the interviews that she gave to the Times and then subsequently to broadcasters over the weekend, including the BBC, would lead us to believe that she is completely in control of her decision-making.
Absolutely. The question is how early on she was...
She doesn't show any sign of remorse, though, does she? She hasn't at any stage said, I didn't know what I was doing, I was a child, I made a terrible mistake. And that's probably what's missing for many people who feel so strongly about this, is that here's a girl who thinks that she actually probably did the right thing. It just hasn't worked out very well for her.
Yes, well, that's true. And of course, that can be an after effect of severe brainwashing. But let's assume that she is, making an adult decision, seems likely. The question then becomes, what kind of support did she offer the enemy? Did she simply behave as the wife of a fighter, or did she recruit for the cause? That seems more likely. Did she take up arms at any time? Then we must ask, should any or all of those options be tried in a court of law within the UK with appropriate penalties? Again, we don't have access to the information the government has, so it's hard to make that call. And then what due process is available, David, to people who have no citizenship? Does she become the UN's responsibility? Where can she or the family get recourse if they feel they're being unjustly treated? These are important questions.
And so much of this is about more than one girl and her husband and her new son, because this is about the message it sends, isn't it, as far as the government are concerned? That's what they're thinking about. It's the message it sends to others who may be thinking of acting in a similar way.
Yes, exactly. And it will be an increasing problem, I think, David, as mobility across the world increases. There are many millions of people today who live outside of their country of origin for the first time in history, and that's only going to increase given the rate at which we travel today and the access we have to information through things like social media platforms. People in poorer parts of the world seeing our standard of living, saying, I'd like a piece of that action. And that's going to add to the problem of when they get here, do they have a British identity, or do they carry with them the residue of a victim mentality from elsewhere, for example, or a persecuted mentality from elsewhere? So these become issues that aren't going to go away quickly, and this one is a test case that will stand, I think, for years to come.
Really good to talk to you again, Mal. Thanks for your perspective. Mal Fletcher, social commentator and futurist.